I was what they call a rescue swimmer.
Okay.
They would tie a little line around me. I'd get into the channel. I would swim out to the wounded soldier, a drowning soldier. I'd pull him back to our Coast Guard cutter, which is 83 foot long with a crew of 13. My name is Jack Hamlin. I live in Springfield, Missouri. I played baseball for the New York Yankees in 1939. When the war broke out, I went down to enlist in the Naval Air Corps. But I got rheumatic fever in the second year I was playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I ended up with an enlarged heart, so I couldn't get in the Naval Air Corps to fly, so I became a Coast Guard man. Well, I thought, this is fine. Coast Guard, I'll just stay home. I won't see any action.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up on Omaha Beach.
The man describing that line was Jack Hamlin. On June 6, 1944, his station was not on the sand at Omaha Beach. It was aboard a wooden Coast Guard cutter moving among landing craft, wreckage, and men in the water. Hamlin's job began where a boat could no longer reach.
And I joined the what they call the Rescue Flotilla number 1. And we were assigned to Plymouth, to Poole, England. And on D-Day, we took off for Omaha Beach, where we had 60 cutters assigned to the 5 beaches. We were one of 15 that went to Omaha Beach.
A crewman secured a line around him. Hamlin entered the channel, and the cutter pulled both swimmer and soldier back. The method sounds improvised because it was, yet it belonged to an organized force with a precise name, Rescue Flotilla One.
On Omaha Beach, we had orders, follow the landing barges in, follow the LSTs in. Stay out of their way, don't get in their way. But if anything happens, like you see one of them get hit by a mine or gets hit by a bomb, and any soldiers are in the water, you go in.
60 Coast Guard cutters had crossed to Britain after escort work along the American coast. Each was just 83 feet long, built of wood, powered by gasoline engines, and normally crewed by 13 men. For the invasion, the cutters were divided among the landing beaches.
And we'd have to take the wounded soldiers or the drowning soldiers out to the hospital ships.
Yeah.
That's 10 miles offshore, off the beaches, because out of the range of the German guns.
Sure.
That day, our cutter alone saved about 70 American soldiers.
15 went to Omaha. Their orders placed them behind the assault craft, close enough to respond when a landing boat was disabled or a soldier could not reach safety, but far enough back to avoid obstructing the flow toward shore. Before the war, Hamlin had pursued professional baseball. Illness closed his route into naval aviation, and the Coast Guard appeared to offer a safer alternative. That expectation makes his last sentence more than a neat reversal. It explains how far his wartime role moved from the one he imagined. He joined in February 1942, trained, and later reported to the unit that would become Rescue Flotilla One. By early June 1944, he was in southern England preparing to cross the Channel with the invasion fleet. The cutters were known as the Matchbox Fleet. The nickname reflected their wooden hulls and gasoline fuel, a vulnerable combination near fire. Their advantage was speed and maneuverability. They could move between larger ships, take men from damaged craft, and carry casualties to hospital ships positioned beyond the effective range of shore defenses. Their purpose was not to deliver the assault. It was to remain mobile inside the invasion traffic and retrieve people whom the larger vessels could not safely reach.
I was ready to go, really, but they'd all told me, you're at the Coast Guard, you probably won't go anywhere. You'll probably be just defending the shores.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, it's all right with me. But then I got to thinking, I'd like to see combat. And about 30 days later, I got the Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States, was the one that decided we got to send somebody back with the invasion fleet to bring the boys out of the water, bring them home safely.
Sure.
So the President decided that the Coast Guard was going to be the one to be Rescue Flotilla.
The allocation reveals the scale of the rescue plan. It also reveals its uncertainty. No crew could know where the worst need would appear, which craft would remain afloat, or how quickly a route through the landing lanes would close. The cutters had to watch the water, identify immediate danger, and act without becoming another obstruction. At Omaha, Hamlin's crew worked from U.S. Coast Guard cutter number 16, a cutter commanded by Lieutenant Junior Grade Walter Slayton. The boat itself was small beside the ships around it, but it carried the mobility that the rescue mission required. Hamlin was not simply another deckhand waiting to receive survivors. He had the assignment that forced the crew's rescue system beyond the hull. When a man was too weak, injured, or exhausted to reach the cutter, the rescue swimmer went to him. The line around Hamlin's body linked swimmer, casualty, and crew. It let the cutter's men recover both of them, while Hamlin used his arms to keep the other person moving and above water. Every part of that chain had to work in rough, crowded water. You go in condensed a complicated judgment into 3 words. A cutter had to approach without colliding with landing craft or drawing another vessel off course. The crew had to decide whether to use a boat hook, take someone directly over the side, or send Hamlin into the water. The swimmer then had to reach a person who might be carrying heavy clothing and equipment and who might not be able to help himself. The line offered a way back, but it did not remove the distance between the cutter and the man who needed it. This is the first turn in Hamlin's story. He had joined a service that he thought would keep him near home. Now his value depended on going toward the precise place other men could no longer escape. The role was neither a separate commando mission nor a lone act performed outside the fleet. It was a crew procedure. Helmsman, deck crew, line, swimmer, casualty, and then the run offshore. Hamlin's courage mattered because it completed that larger system.
During the 5 beach savings of our 60 cutters, we saved a total of 486 soldiers during D-Day, plus 1 British nurse. She was blown off an LST. I didn't save her, but I did save about 20 soldiers from the channel. I'm very proud of that.
Recovery from the water was only the first movement. A full cutter then had to leave the beach lanes and carry its passengers toward medical care offshore. That shuttle consumed time, fuel, and space. It also forced the crew to decide when another person could be taken aboard and when the boat had to turn away from the beach. Hamlin remembered roughly 70 people carried by his cutter that day. The number belongs to his testimony. The physical pattern is supported by the Coast Guard's record of cutters repeatedly moving between the landing area and hospital ships. The flotilla's modern official history records 484 people rescued on D-Day itself, 194 at Omaha, 157 at Utah, and 133 across the British and Canadian beaches. Across the wider Normandy operation, the cutters were credited with 1,438 rescues. Those current totals differ slightly from the number Hamlin recalled in his interview. Preserving both is not a contradiction to hide. It shows the difference between one veteran's memory and the later consolidated record. Hamlin's estimate of his personal rescues was about 20. No complete list assigns individual names to each swim, so the documentary does not convert that recollection into a more exact claim. What can be established is his presence with Rescue Flotilla One, the cutter's mission, and the official rescue totals for the force. His pride rested not on a medal citation built around one dramatic episode, but on repeated entries into the water as part of a small crew doing the job for which it had been sent. That distinction matters because the familiar D-Day image points toward the beach. Rescue Flotilla One asks the viewer to look in the opposite direction. Its decisive movement often ran from shore back to sea, from a damaged landing craft to a cutter, from a cutter to a hospital ship, then back toward the landing lanes. The flotilla did not change the invasion's objective. It changed the chances of people who had already lost the ability to move through it on their own. Hamlin linked the flotilla's creation directly to President Roosevelt. The broader record shows that the cutters were transferred for rescue duty under the invasion's naval command, then trained and organized in Britain. Whether the order reached Hamlin through a formal chain or unit explanation, his memory captured the reason behind it. Landing forces needed a dedicated rescue layer. The task could not be left to whichever ship happened to be nearby. Boats had to be assigned, crews prepared, and an operating pattern established before the first landing craft turned toward France. The system also had limits. The cutters could not reach every person, remain in every sector, or eliminate the hazards around them. Their rescue count should not become a claim that 484 outcomes depended on one man or one boat. Hamlin's story is strongest when it stays at its actual scale. A 13-man crew, an 83-foot cutter, a line, and a swimmer who repeatedly crossed the last distance. That scale makes the flotilla visible without turning a shared operation into a solitary legend. Hamlin returned to Normandy more than once because the operation did not end in his memory when the cutter left the beach. Anniversaries brought veterans back into contact with the places and people connected to their service. In 2014, France appointed him to the Legion of Honor. The recognition came 70 years after the crossing, when the practical details of a rescue swimmer's work could finally be placed beside the larger story of the landings. His later visits also changed the image available to history. There is the young Coast Guardsman in uniform, the 83-foot cutter, and the wartime photograph of men being brought from the water. Then there is the older Hamlin speaking directly to a camera, demonstrating the line around his body with his hands. The gap between those images is not decoration. It is the evidence that the account came from the same person who carried the memory for decades.
Including D-Day, this is my sixth time. 1994, I was one of 75 Coast Guard men, or D-Day survivors, to have dinner with the Queen of England.
Oh, wow.
That was quite an honor in the 50th anniversary.
Oh, that's always an honor,
Yes,
absolutely.
sir. And I came back in 2014 was the next time I came back. And I came back and I was honored with the Legion of Honor by the French government.
Wow.
In 2014. And I'm proud of that also.
The sentence turns the story away from Hamlin's own recognition. He returned to thank the people who hosted the veterans and to remember those who could not return. That is why the closing should not chase a larger claim than the witness made. Hamlin did not present himself as the single answer to D-Day's losses. He described a defined duty performed on one day, then placed that duty beside the much longer service of men who remained ashore.
I tell you, the people in Normandy are wonderful people. They take care of us. Everything's free. The host and hostess, where they put us up, it's just imaginable. That's one reason I come back, to thank them and to say anything I can do for the veterans that didn't get to go home, let them know what they're doing for us.
For a documentary, that restraint is useful evidence. It prevents the rescue figure from becoming a slogan and keeps the physical mechanism in view. The line around Hamlin was short. The hospital ships were miles away. Between them stood an 83-foot cutter and a crew repeatedly turning back toward the beach. Rescue Flotilla One was not a side note to be added after the landing story. It was a planned answer to what the landing would leave in the water. Hamlin's final comparison does not reduce what happened at Omaha. It defines how he wanted it remembered. He had one day in the invasion lanes, while others continued for weeks or months on land. He could be proud of the rescues without accepting a title he believed belonged elsewhere. The testimony gains weight from that boundary. A man can describe entering the channel, estimate the people he pulled back, and still refuse to make himself larger than the crew or the operation.
There's three things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a paratrooper. Yeah. I didn't want to be in a submarine. Yeah. And I didn't want to be in infantry and live in a foxhole. My duties, and I'll tell you this, I don't consider myself any kind of hero because all I did was just D-Day. And just one day. I wasn't in a foxhole for a month. I wasn't fighting here and fighting there.
I would think that one day is enough.
One day was all right, but that's why I say we did our job and did it good. Yeah. But I'm just happy that I had been a foxhole.
Jack Hamlin died in 2021 at the age of 102. The current Coast Guard history remembers him as a boatswain, rescue swimmer, and member of Rescue Flotilla One. His own account leaves a simpler sequence. He expected shore duty. He crossed to Omaha. A line was tied around him. When someone was in the water, he went in. Then the cutter turned offshore, delivered the rescued man, and came back. That repeated return is the part of D-Day his voice makes visible.